mean, we're still dealing with somewhat tentative numbers at this point,
Yeah, that's,
somewhat.
Ms. Hutchinson, I think that's what, I think Mr. Gantz putting it, how I feel. I mean, I'm a little frustrated about the time, and if you know, if tonight, do we need tonight, even if you want to pass the budget, but are we down to the motion having the exact millage in it tonight? We're not.
No.
It's just we can vote on that we support what's in the budget
Right.
and how we're funded, if I
We're
heard
just
Mr.
voting
Gant right.
first reading approval.
Right. But that's my point. I realize first reading, and I know you have to have 3 for budget, or just 2? Do we not have a budget
We had a
workshop?
discussion.
Yeah, there's some where people can come forward. So tonight, it doesn't need the millage amount. We have time to,
Right, we have
That's what I
time,
wanted.
since we've asked several questions, we have time to get that information back. And as Mr. Richardson mentioned, if we're still have these questions, if we need to have a special called meeting to get this information, then we'll do it.
and I had one more question. Have we, in passing the budget, have we, and I know we have been ad nausea in past years when we've had budget shortfalls. I think one year Dr. Berg was here, it was really hard. Did we use some of the fund balance that year? I know you don't like to touch, I understand that it's like a savings, but, well, Mr. Richardson wasn't here, but do you know if we have, just when you look back, have we used some of it some of the years?
I know it's been budgeted some of the years, but not necessarily used. Last year, we did go into it about $1 million.
I was thinking we did, or I was thinking 2
Excuse me,
million.
in 2014, about $1 million.
Mr. White?
What was the step increase again this year?
I showed an example of 1.5%, but it, on average, is about 2%.
It was about $2 million, something like that? 2.4?
About probably closer to $3 million.
One point I just want to highlight, and Jan, in response to your question, and I know you weren't in our budget session last year, but you have a step increase of $2.4 million. We paid out of fund balance. Next year, you got to come up with $2.4 million to pay that, and then you have a new step increase on top of it. That's the compounding. So if you brought one-time money, we could deplete our fund balance in about 4 or 5 years if we didn't raise millage increases, or we portioned it out. And you know, we have recurring expenses. We need recurring revenue, or it's inevitable where we're going to end up. I mean, it's just no mathematical possibility. We're going to end up there unless there's other sources of recurring revenue. So fund balance may be convenient, but
Yeah.
we have double the problem next year.
Yeah.
And
It's
you're
one-time
looking at
money.
the same issue, but you don't have the same ability to go back unless you use that 3-year catch-up and pick up that level of revenue that you didn't pick up from a millage increase.
And Ms. Watson, I have one more question on that. It used to be that you kept a certain percentage of the
Fund
worth of the
balance.
district. Right. What's our current fund balance? Has that changed of the amount we, you know, was it 8%? I'm remembering that.
I think that was the policy.
But it
8 or
might have
12%.
changed.
Yeah,
It's-
I'm not real sure.
What is our policy to?
It's higher than 12%?
We try to keep, I know it can vary. I know some districts don't keep very much, but we've always been smart. Do you know what ours is?
I'm not sure what our policy says, but we finished last year at about a little better than $32 million.
And what percent of the budget would that be?
Yeah, that's what I want.
Let's see.
My brain
Mr.
shut off this
Bounds
late, I had to
pulling
get a
out his,
calculator.
Yeah, it's,
We voted
What-
on that, Ms. Hutchinson, one year, I think, when Ms. Height, and I just remember we changed.
More recently, we have a percentage by policy, which you all have set since I've been here fairly recently,
Oh, okay.
in terms of the percentage of the budget that's to be kept in reserve.
I don't recall what the policy says.
I'd like to know what that is, if they can bring that back to us.
all right, we might.
I don't have immediate access to it, and I don't want to guess at it publicly. I don't know, Mark, can you find it in board policy, or? Yeah, well, let's don't, we make sure we give out the,
while you're looking for that, I have a question about the budget that is proposed. How is that reflected in our staff? I know we've got a lot of staff members who are retiring, perhaps moving, faculty, and staff. And does this budget include replacing everyone who is leaving?
I believe it includes every position that we currently have calculated at an average. Is that correct, Mr. Richardson?
Right, we have an average salary we base our budget upon, especially as people retire. We come up with a lower budget figure on salary. Of course, the younger the employee, the cheaper they are.
Well, and one thing that's tricky about that, remember, we have to abide by all the laws, federal laws and regulations. We don't discriminate based on age. So we can't say we're only going to hire people who are 22 and work at the zero step. That would be a discrimination case. So we budget on an average, and our budget is built on the number of FTEs that are currently approved, plus the ones that he noted in the budget tonight.
Well, just in a conversation and asking some questions with you,
All right. The policy says 15 to 18% of our budget is our reserve is to equal 15 to 18% of our budget.
thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Pounds. So what I'm getting at is if we take a hard look at the openings through attrition, and we take a hard look, can you tell us, I know you probably can't do it now, but can you tell us next time, give us some scenarios of perhaps where we could save money if we didn't replace everybody, if we, did some creative shifting of personnel. And I know y'all have sharpened your pencil, but I think that, the board is making some hard decisions, and we'd like to know. I mean, you might come back and say, well, goodness, if we do this will result in a class size that none of us on the board will like.
We can take a look at all that. Again, we have to, we certainly want to meet all the standards that are out there. So sometimes when you have a person retire who's in a position that is required, mandated by law, that position has to be replaced. So.
But not all of our positions are like that.
No. In fact, many of our support positions are not required by law. That's basically where they're going to be. We do have some certified positions that aren't required, but percentage-wise, the ones that are not going to be required are more likely to be support positions.
Okay, and just to be very clear, I'm talking about attrition. I'm not talking about,
A person leaving.
I'm about a person leaving. I'm not talking about any suggestions. I agree with your philosophy of we want to keep,
Right.
we want to
Gotcha.
keep the employees who are saying that they want to be here. But through attrition, I think, that might be a small way that we can make a dent in this budget.
And we will certainly look at that as, depending on what your motion directs us to, where we end up in terms of what we're working toward here. We'll
Okay.
work accordingly.
And the motion might, well, we'll see. Thank you.
Now, I would prefer that you give us as much latitude as possible on your motion. And again, we understand what we've got to do. It's not pleasant. I've been doing this a long time, and this is the toughest budget year I ever recall. This is tough, and it's tough for the reasons I outlined at the beginning. It's hard to know what all of these factors contribute to our success, and when you start taking them away one by one, which one's going to be the one that causes the system to tilt in one way or the other? But I get that, and we clearly will look at all of those options.
Okay. Mr. Gant, I know you were ready to,
Can I have one more question? It's a question.
Yes.
Do you mind? The step increase, isn't it after a certain amount of time? We probably have a good many employees that don't get the step anymore, right? It's only up to a certain
That's
number of
correct.
years. So when we figured that amount, there, what is the year, 20 years? Or 8, and after 18, there's no increase in those employees. And I'd like to know how many of those employees we have.
Well, our teacher schedule goes further than 18 years.
Okay. How about our staff people? Is it 18? Oh, it is, okay.
I think it's in this book, right?
Yes.
That's, Ms. Hammond?
I believe you.
It's,
I mean,
it's
yeah,
somewhere,
I
yes,
just
in this
didn't read
budget
it.
book.
But I
yes.
knew it ended at a certain number of years.
Yes.
In our budget, because
I
we
didn't
have
say
a
that.
constant
But I'm just
turnover of
saying.
workforce with younger people coming in, so
They're getting it.
it's going to be there forever. So,
We're
and-
just swapping people
Yeah.
to get it. I get it.
I mean, I don't think it's changed materially. I mean, it's always been a couple $1 million as long as I remember.
Stays about the same.
Okay. Mr. Gant?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we give first reading approval of the general fund budget for 2015, 2016, shown in Exhibit H, in the amount of $167,272,453.
Is there a second? Mr. White seconds. Any more discussion?
Does that give
Clarification.
him the latitude you wanted?
I got it.
Okay.
I hope I can sleep tonight, but we'll go to work on it tomorrow.
And so this is the latitude, it's not setting the millage, and it is,
That's how
it's,
I can vote.
it's kind of a base point to get started.
That's correct.
So, just to, I know we're all just really have a lot of angst about this, so just to kind of let you know. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the general fund budget as presented by the administration, please raise your hands. All opposed? That passes 7-0. And I thank you very much. Thank you for the late hour, but I think we had a lot of good conversation, a lot of good input, and certainly to the administration. If you need further clarification questions that you have for the board members, please let us know. All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn, since we have nothing on our discussion agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second? Ms. Hammond seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hands. All opposed, that passes 7-0. Thank you very much.